Breaking news, everyone. Breaking news. SCOTUS has ruled against affirmative action from a 6-3 decision. Consideration of race has been outlawed as a factor in college admission. And we're going to talk about this because this is very important for all of you out there who are currently attending college or going to attend college, or your children are going to attend college, or your grandchildren. You need to know about this. Hey everyone, what's going on? Good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today. And for all of you outside in those hot and humid cities and counties, stay very hydrated, okay? I like to say that in the summertime. So, as you all know, as I just introduced the topic, SCOTUS has outlawed race as a factor in college admissions. According to ABC 7, it reads, the Supreme Court on Thursday struck down affirmative action in college admissions, forcing institutions of higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies. The court's conservative majority overturned admissions plans at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, the nation's oldest private and public colleges, respectively. Chief Justice John Roberts said that for too long, universities have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges beset, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. In dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the decision rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress. What is affirmative action and why do schools use it? Affirmative action in college admissions is a policy of taking an individual student's race or ethnicity into account during the selection process. Since the 1960s, seeking to overcome a legacy of segregation and inequality in higher education in many American colleges and universities began giving preference to applicants from underrepresented groups in order to proactively diversify their campuses. In addition to redressing historic injustice, the schools say a diverse learning environment benefits all students and leads to a more informed society and workforce. Where is affirmative action used in higher education? Roughly 20% of four-year public universities still consider race during the admission process. According to a report by Ballotpedia, many of those institutions say they consistently evaluate race-neutral alternatives, but that they are largely less effective in advancing campus diversity. Since 1996, 10 states have banned the use of race in public university admissions, including California, Michigan, and Florida, according to the American Educational Research Association. Is there evidence that race-conscious policies are working? Many schools, including Harvard and UNC, say consideration of race as one factor in a holistic assessment of applicants is an indispensable tool for building a diverse campus. Since 1976, Black, Native American, Hispanic, and Asian American students enrollment has surged, according to Department of Education data. Despite the gains, however, students of color remain underrepresented on campus nationwide. Didn't the Supreme Court already uphold affirmative action? The court has repeatedly said since 1978 that colleges and universities may consider the race of applicants as one factor among many, in the interest of promoting compelling educational benefits that come from a diverse student body. The court has prohibited the use of quota systems, but said in 2003 that narrowly tailored use of race is permissible when making a holistic assessment for admission. It most recently affirmed this precedent in 2016. Who is behind the latest challenge to affirmative action? Students for Fair Admissions, a multiracial, multi-ethnic group of 22,000 students and parents, led by longtime conservative activist Edward Bloom, is opposed to race-conscious admission policies. The group believes affirmative action violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits racial discrimination in any place that receives federal funding like private universities. In 2014, SFFA sued Harvard College, the nation's oldest private college, and the University of North Carolina, the nation's oldest public university, alleging illegal racial discrimination against Asian American applicants during the admissions process. What do the schools have to say? The schools say the nation's history and tradition, including the 14th Amendment's extension of citizenship rights to former enslaved people after the Civil War, made clear that explicit consideration of race is allowed to address inequality and promote societal benefits. They say using race as one factor among many in a holistic review, consistent with the course precedents, is not exclusionary or harmful to other students. How did lower courts rule in these cases? After a fact-intensive trial examining Harvard's admission policies in depth, a federal district court rejected SFFA's claims. An appeals court later affirmed that decision, finding universities' practices consistent with the Supreme Court's precedent. Separately, a federal district court rejected SFFA's claims against UNC after trial, before an appeal was heard. However, the Supreme Court agreed to take up the case in tandem with the Harvard case. What is the Supreme Court being asked to do? Opponents of affirmative action want the justices to overturn 40 years of precedent and categorically ban the use of race in higher education admission policies nationwide. How would ending affirmative action impact higher education? This is very important. Supporters of the policy say it would unequivocally mean fewer minority students on the campuses of the nation's most selective colleges and universities. Without affirmative action, students of color would experience an estimated 23% point decline in likelihood of admission to highly selective public universities, according to one study from 2014. Dozens of major American companies that employ tens of thousands of U.S. workers have told the Supreme Court that any affirmative action will undermine recruitment of diverse, highly educated job candidates and in turn hurt profits. Opponents of the policy, however, say the potential consequences are exaggerated, that alternative admissions strategies can advance racial diversity on campuses and that race blindness will restore equity for all Americans. Very important term, equity, because I'm going to get to that. Where is public opinion on campus diversity and affirmative action? Most Americans say they strongly support promotion of racial diversity on college and university campuses, according to recent polling. But strong majorities also oppose the use of race as a factor in admissions decisions. A Pew Research Center study earlier this year found 68% of Hispanics and 63% of Asian Americans and 59% of African Americans oppose the use of race or ethnicity in college admissions. And there you have it. So now we're going to go back to that word equity. Equity is basically allocating resources to groups or even a person in a fair manner. So it's the quality of being fair and impartial. Okay? That's what equity is. So, to be fair, okay, and in a legal term, it's a branch of law that developed alongside common law in order to remedy some of its defects in fairness and justice, formerly administered in special courts. Here's the problem that happened with equity. We went from equity to equality, which meant that everyone was treated the same. And that's not fair. And this goes back to affirmative action. Affirmative action was first proposed to benefit the children who were, or those who were the descendants of American chattel slavery and who were being persecuted under Jim Crow, which were Black Americans, okay? The problem is it went from it being for a particular group of people to being included for the whole, to included for other people of color, to white women, to women. So it became every group who has been mistreated in America except for white men. Okay? So through the years, affirmative action has benefited other groups more than the group that it was created for, which is, you could say ADOS, or those that identify as FBA, okay? For those groups of people. The problem is that it even went to the extremes of inclusivity to, okay, you have to hire me based on the fact that I'm from a group that has been discriminated against. Because let's be honest, groups of color have been discriminated against, including women, and you have to hire me or admit me into your institution even if I'm not the best, even if I failed. So it became an asinine policy because it was supposed to be for people who were very good, particularly Black people who were excellent and excelled to get into colleges, to get hired on jobs. But because they were Black, they couldn't get it. That's what affirmative action was, to prevent things like that, not to put you in based on you not being the best. Okay? Now, I know people are going to say, well, what about the whites who weren't the best? It's messed up, and that's wrong. And that's horrible. But I'm going to say this. 2 wrongs don't make a right. All wrongs should be eradicated. That's how I feel. Because here's the thing about the affirmative action struck down. Those students of color, particularly Black students, they're not going to be able to go to UNC like they were. A lot of Black students go to UNC who don't play sports, particularly in school education. I'm going to put a picture of UNC students walking on campus that are Black. The thing about this case is that it was 2 Asian students that filed. It wasn't white students, it was Asian students. And Asian students have benefited from affirmative action, but not as much through the past couple of decades because many of them have aligned themselves with white people. They see themselves as a model minority. They've been chosen as a model minority. So they have been tethered with white people, whereas Blacks and Hispanics have been tethered. So it was this whole thing, and many of these Asians that have come here, they come here post-civil rights. These aren't the Asians that came here post-slavery, post-Civil War, pre-World War II. These are Asians who have actually come here, who in their countries actually came from money. But because mainly from China, mainly from Korea, but because of communism taking them from being able to enjoy their wealth, they were able to come here, and whatever money they had left over, they were able to take some of it and come here. So because of who they were back home, they have been treated not totally quite like the white people, but better than other groups. So that's why they've been given modern minority privileges, and that is the reason why they see themselves more in line with whiteness because of the money they had back home, a lot of them. And I've had Asian people tell me that many of them who are the minority, they come from money. Okay? So they already had a leg up back home. So because of who they were when they came here and their background, they were given access more so than you and I, as in Black people and as in other groups. And even, I'm going to say, poor whites. So this means that now those points that you were getting to go to these private colleges, because it's really about these private PWIs, you're not going to get in just on your color or including your color. You're going to get in solely on your academic skills, your extracurricular activity skills, and your athleticism. So those days are over, kids. And with that being said, I'm signing out. Thank you for listening and tuning in. I will talk to you all later. Take care.